and welcome to the Fun Kids Bookworms podcast. My name is Bex, and I love books, which is quite handy actually, because this week we've got a lot of them to tell you about. There's going to be The Boy and the Octopus, a brand new picture book. There's Arkspire 2 from Jamie Littler, and there's Oddney's Otherland, a fantasy adventure from Sarah and Rodney Matthews. So first, let's go to Caryl Lewis and The Boy and the Octopus. We're going to meet Stanley and his toy octopus, who teaches him there's more than one way to be brave. All right, so I am joined right now by author Caryl Lewis, author of a brand new book called The Boy and the Octopus. Hey, how you doing?
I'm very well, Borda. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Now, I need to know about this beautiful book that you've given to us because it is an absolute humdinger. I love this so much. It's a story about Stanley, about facing up to bullies. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So it's a book about Stanley and his toy octopus. But every night he goes dreaming with his octopus down into the sea of sleep. But Stanley's having a bit of a hard time. He's quite a shy boy and he's having a hard time with bullies. So he's kind of started to make himself small and disappear and not say much. But then they go down to the sea of sleep one night and Octopus does something truly extraordinary and gives Stanley an idea of how to solve the problem and let his grown-up in on what's been happening. So yeah, it's a story about creativity and friendship and how the arts, painting, writing, drawing, all these things are so good for us and help us express ourselves.
It's kind of appropriate that, I don't want to give too much away, but that the art is a really good thing for Stanley to do and drawing lots of lovely pictures when you have such lovely pictures in the book as well.
They are gorgeous, aren't they? I mean, Carmen Saldana, we worked together before on The Boy Who Dreamed Dragons, and she just has this amazing way with colour. Every time I get the drawings through, I'm just blown away because they're just so warm, so full of colour, saturated and bright, but also warm and kind of loving and reassuring. And yeah, she just does an amazing job at capturing the feelings in the book because the book is all about feelings. And yeah, she does a terrific job.
Well, I was going to ask actually why an octopus, because a lot of people have cuddly toys. Does your son have a cuddly octopus? Is that why?
He does. And he sleeps with it every night. And he loves, as Stanley does, its kind of wrap-aroundy arms. Because octopuses are very good at hugs. Obviously, they would be, They have 8 arms. And he's always been fascinated by them. And every time we go to a museum, we have to go and have a look. And he watches films on YouTube about them. And they're just really fascinating creatures and really clever, really, really clever things. So it was inspired by him. And he's always sometimes struggles to express what he's feeling. And he came to me one day with a scribble on a piece of paper. And he said, I can't tell you what I'm feeling, but I kind of feel like that. And that's where the book came from that little moment, and trying to help him find a way to, let us in about what was happening and how we could help him together.
Yeah, because in the book, Stanley doesn't really know how to express himself and his dad isn't too sure either, but he knows there's something wrong with him and he's not feeling great. And then eventually it does come down to being able to kind of draw your feelings and it's interesting to know there are other ways to get your emotions out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everyone's different, Some people are not great with talking about feelings, but there are other ways that we can express them. And that is, my daughter dances a lot and she says that sometimes she speaks through dance. And some kids like pottery or they like drawing or whatever it is. But that's the wonderful thing about the arts, really, is that it kind of helps us. And it's also really calming, I think. My little boy, he loves kind of drawing things, and he says, after school, after kind of all the busyness and everything that's going on and all the things that kids have to kind of cope with and remember, that actually it's quite nice to kind of chill out, get some paper and just have a little doodle, and he loves to do that. So yeah, everyone's different, and I think that's the magic thing about art and reading and words and paintings, is that, it helps us be who we really are. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah, everything from the way you draw to the colours you pick kind of express how you feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be little things and it can be projects and that kind of thing. But the colours, and I think kids are really good at that because as you get older, you get a bit kind of, self-conscious. And it's really important to just express it kind of honestly and truthfully, because as we get older, we kind of lose that ability, or we worry about what other people think. And I think as kids get older, it happens to them as well. And if it's not perfect, or it doesn't look exactly like what it's supposed to be, we get a bit upset. But I think it's really important to just follow your feelings, and whatever it is comes out. And I just think that it's a magical process, isn't it?
It is indeed. And also, to be honest, I'm always here for any story that has a little cuddly creature that you take to bed. I think that's always amazing.
They are amazing. We all love our cuddly toys. And yeah, Stanley definitely loves his octopus.
Absolutely. Did you have a cuddly toy when you were little?
I had a cuddly duck.
A duck?
A little cuddly duck that I took everywhere. She was called Gainy Gluck because I don't know how you translate that. It's like little duck in Welsh. And I used to have it, and I still have her actually. And she sits on my daughter's wardrobe. And yeah, I think we have this bond, don't we? And that security and that attachment that kind of is quite sweet, really.
Absolutely. I've still got my teddy bear, Thomas the Teddy. So yeah, I'm with you on this. Absolutely.
That's cute.
Now, before I let you go, we do a little quick fire round of questions with all authors, if that's okay to do with you right now.
Absolutely.
A little this or that game. So first up, easy one, books or Kindles?
Oh, books, every time.
Oh, there you go, straight away. Heroes or villains?
Ooh, villains, I would say. Because often they're a bit more interesting.
Yeah. No, fair enough, but I like that. I like the dramatic pause you gave before you did that. Film adaptation or TV adaptation?
Oh, that's hard. Oof, but I mean both. But I suppose TV gives you more time because you have a longer series than an hour and a half that you have in film.
Absolutely. Now this one is, this is only for you. I don't ask everyone this one. Would you rather have 8 limbs or 3 hearts?
8 limbs, because I am a mother of 3 and I'm a writer and I live on a farm where I help out as well. And if I could have 8 limbs, that would be great. Sign me up.
Oh my goodness, yeah, you absolutely do. Oh my goodness. Beginnings or endings?
Oh, endings.
Hogwarts or Narnia?
Hogwarts.
Okay. Paddington Bear or Winnie the Pooh?
Oh, that's hard. Paddington Bear, perhaps, because he's always looking a bit lost, like me.
Good reason. And finally, the last one is a big one. Salt and vinegar or cheese and onion?
Oh, salt and vinegar every time.
Yes!
Not keen on the cheese and onion.
Absolutely the correct answer, in my opinion. Yeah, salt and vinegar every day of the week. So you passed my super secret end of interview test about the crisps. So congratulations on that. That's the big one, obviously. So thank you so much for telling us all about The Boy and the Octopus. And I believe it'll be in all bookshops right now. Is that right?
It's out now, absolutely. And I hope people get their hands on it and really enjoy it and enjoy the pictures as well. Because, everyone needs an octopus in their life, quite frankly.
They sure do. And honestly, it's such a beautiful book. If it's not in all of the bookshop windows, I will be flabbergasted.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Carmen is amazing. I'm really honoured to be working with her.
It's such a lovely, lovely story as well. Thank you so much, Caryl, for telling us all about it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Next up on the podcast, it's Jamie Littler. Now, Jamie's got his Arkspire series out right now. The second book in the series is out. It's called The Order of the Misfits. We're joining Juniper Bell's Order of Misfits and their mission to take down the evil and powerful Arcanists. Let's find out more. So I am joined right now by author and illustrator Jamie Littler. Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, well, we go way back. I remember when you came into the studio with Danny Wallace ages ago.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago now, but yeah, I remember just being so excited to be on the radio with you guys. So and the excitement hasn't gone.
Good answer. And of course, now you're going out on your own, and you've got your second series. This is your second one, right? After Frostheart?
It is. Right? Yeah. So my first series was a trilogy called Frostheart, and this is my new trilogy, which is called Arkspire, which I'm very excited about.
And you've got the second book out in the Arkspire series, The Order of Misfits. If we've missed the first book, catch us up a little bit. What's going on in this world?
Okay, so it's a little complicated, but very fun, I hope. So basically, Arkspire is a huge city that's basically 5 towers that soar up to the sky. But that's not what's the only strange thing about this city. It's also ruled by 5 Arcanists. These are the only people in the world who can use magic. They're basically magicians. And in book 1, Juniper, the main character, she has made the bold claim that she is a new Arcanist, that she is someone who can use magic, even though she can't. And during this misadventure of hers, she's discovered a very dark secret hidden in Arkspire, an evil threat that threatens everyone in the city. So in book 2, we're rejoining Juniper and her gang. And they are having to try and conquer this threat. They're going to have to try and save the city, even though it's like this secret thing that no one knows about, this darkness that's threatening everyone. And also Juniper is having to continue to try and convince the city that she can use magic. So it's going to take all of her bravery, her skills as a thief, and her wits to overcome these odds, as well as this strange creature that she's discovered, this otherworldly magical creature called Cinder, who she's having to learn whether she can trust him or not, because he's either going to be her greatest hope in overcoming these odds or her greatest threat. She doesn't know what to think about this creature. So book 2 has a lot more of what book 1 had, which is lots of adventure, lots of humor, but also kind of crime capers sneaking about in places they shouldn't be, pretending to be things they're not, as well as some quite spooky, ghosty moments as well, set in this huge kind of steampunk-esque city.
I mean, a great description. They're straight away. I mean, if we weren't in before, we're in now. Tell us about creating the world of Arkspire, because, I mean, how do you do it? I know you're an amazing illustrator. Do you draw it and plan it in your head first? Like, do you have Post-it notes on the wall?
Yeah, it's a lot like that, really. So I was an illustrator before I was an author, and I think very visually, I think like a lot of people do. So I've got sketchbooks just full of sketches, and often an idea will pop in my head. So when I was doing Frostheart, which was my first series, it was this huge adventure set across this frozen land. And I knew I wanted to do something quite different to that with my new series. So I've made this like kind of impossible city obsessed with magic, and it goes really high up into the sky. And that gave me a lot of opportunities for fun design, like that. It's almost this maze-like city that has no end, effectively. So I was just drawing all these sketches in my book. And sometimes I'll write about something in the story and think, what would that look like? So I'll run over to my sketchbook, start doing some sketches. And sometimes I'll do a drawing where I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And I'll actually go back into the book and change the description of it or how it looks. Or, sometimes I'll just write something really plain in the book, like they go to the bank. And, it sounds really boring, but then I'll go to my sketchbook and try and make the most insane, weird, strange building I can imagine, and then go back into the story and re-describe it, which is, a really fun way to work.
It's kind of like improv. I like it. It's a kind of way of... like workshopping. And do those pictures that you do there, do they ever make it into the book, or are they brand new illustrations for the book?
Yeah, usually brand new illustrations. So because I like to try and really figure out what things are going to look like. So I think, and this goes for anyone who enjoys drawing out there, is that I think you can put a lot of pressure on yourself if you try and do a perfect drawing straight away. So I find it really helpful just to do some really loose, sketchy drawings that in my brain I pretend no one else will see but me. So it kind of takes away that pressure. I can just play around, have fun. And then eventually you'll start to think, hey, this looks cool. And then I'll work that up. And then when it comes to doing the final artwork, I feel a bit more confident about what I'm drawing. I've drawn it a few times. And it just makes the whole process a bit more fun and a bit more relaxing.
Does it take longer, do you think, to create these books because you were doing the illustrations, or is it quicker because you know exactly what you want, so you don't have to tell somebody else? I
think it takes longer, weirdly, and I think I think only because I think I'm the one to blame for that. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I think sometimes, like when I've been very lucky to work with other authors, such as Danny Wallace and things, they will give me a description of something, and I'll go away and I'll draw a few versions of it. And then often be shown to the author and they'll be like, oh yeah, I really like this one. And that reaction gives me that, that confidence. Oh, they really like that, so I'll do that. Whereas when it's me, I'm the author and the illustrator. I'm like, oh no, I don't I don't think this is good enough yet. No, I'm not happy with this. This isn't how it looked in my head, and I'll keep going and going until it's how I want it. So whilst it's so brilliant to be able to create my own world, I love it so much, and it's kind of like my dream job. I can be my own worst enemy in that sense, in that I seem quite hard to please, which maybe is a good thing or maybe a bad thing. I'm not sure.
It's tricky when you're hard to please yourself, isn't it? But no, I totally understand it. If you know your skills and your limits and exactly what is in your head, it must just be that thing of like, but I can get this out better.
Yeah, it's like if I draw it one more time, I think I can make this almost closer to what's in my imagination. And yeah, and you never really get there, but you often end up in a place where you're like, this is great, this looks cool, and I'm happy with this.
That's the best option, I guess. I assume there is another book in the series. Would that be right?
Yes, there will be. So it's a trilogy. There will be a third and final book, which I'm actually writing right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's always weird doing these talks because book 2's just come out, and I go out there and I'm really excited for people to read book 2, but it's so weird because my head is writing book 3 at the moment, so I have to make sure I don't reveal things that are happening in book 3. But yeah, so I'm writing book 3 at the moment, and if the stakes are higher in book 2, then they're like up in space in book 3. Things have really escalated by book 3, and it's really testing Juniper and everything she has to kind of come out of it alive at this point. So the threat to Arkspire is real, and she's I'm hoping it will be a satisfying ending. I've had to go back through the books 1 and 2 and like reread them and remember, okay, these are all the things I need to answer. And, hopefully I've done a good job of that as well. Hopefully all your questions will be answered by the end.
Oh my goodness, what a tease. But in the meantime, everybody has to read the second book, right?
Yeah, otherwise it will make very little sense. Yeah.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for telling us all about Arkspire and about the world you've created. The Order of the Misfits is out right now, and hopefully everybody should go and grab it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I really hope you enjoy it if you read it.
Thank you so much to Jamie. An old school friend of the show there, Jamie Littler. But now we've got some new friends of the show. It's Sarah and Rodney Matthews. Now they're going to tell us about Oddney's Otherland, where Uncle Cuthbert's old journal is discovered by Professor Oddney, and he goes on a rather mysterious adventure to the land of dragons and magpies and goblins. So I am joined right now by the author and illustrator of Oddney's Otherland, Rodney and Sarah Matthews. Hello, how are you doing?
We're doing very well. It's very good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh no, thank you so much for doing this. You've got such a lovely book. I just loved it so much. The illustrations and the writing all are beautiful. So I guess, Sarah, tell us where we meet your main character.
Well, we meet the main character, Oddney, Professor Clive Oddney, in his garden. And he heads off to the garden shed for a spade. And when he goes there, he is joined by his pet magpie, Magnus, who talks a lot. And the pair of them simply go into the shed, but in there they discover a little gnome running underneath a flower pot into a tunnel that goes from the shed to a very special place.
Yeah, a garden gnome, but a living one.
Yeah.
And then we get transported to another world. But I do want to double check. Rodney, I heard that was Magnus based on a bird that you maybe had or knew when you were younger?
Yes, indeed. When I was a child, I had a pet magpie. And this is very much like a real event. The way in which he interacts with Oddney is very much like the magpie and me when I was younger. He would always sit on my head. Irrespective of whether there was a hat there, and travel about with me. He was free to go, but never did. And we just went on adventures together, a child and his magpie. So now we have an elderly gentleman with his magpie. So it's a reflection of the same sort of thing, but many years later.
We've got the Prof and Magnus. They follow this gnome into this other world. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, it's a land of dragons and adventures, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all sorts of creatures. If I could explain, the book was originally hatched in my mind in 1977, believe it or not. And it was to be a catalogue of strange creatures, large and small, in a fantasy world. And a lot of them were quite unpleasant, these creatures. So the title of the book was going to be The Nasties. But as I progressed over the years and added a bit here and there, I thought, a catalogue is okay, but how about a nice story? But I'm not a writer myself. I'm an illustrator. And then when I met Sarah and married her, I showed her my sketches and the illustrations I'd already done for this book. And she was sort of really taken by the characters. So she offered to write the story, and that is when we really got creative and got together and bounced off each other. We ended up with this amazing story that was not part of the original plot.
So I was going to ask whether the story or the pictures came first, but I guess the pictures came first, and Sarah, then you worked around it.
Yeah, the pictures came first. But having said that, when Sarah wrote her side of the story into this, it brought me to a place where I had to re-illustrate or add other illustrations to it.
Yeah, there were things like I would come up with something that I really wanted to be in the story, and I would say, Rodney, I need a picture because it has to have this in it.
And also, you've got some dragons in there as well. It must have been quite fun to imagine some dragons, right?
Yes, the dragons come naturally to me because the mainstream of my art is fantasy, and I've done quite a lot of dragons in books and things, myths and legends books, and on record covers and all sorts of things. So dragons come easy.
Yeah, I was just going to say our house is filled with dragons. So it's a home of dragons.
Yeah. And so what we've actually got is this two-headed fire drake, which is a utterly intimidating creature that breathes fire from two heads. I don't want to give too much of the game away, but I balanced it up with a rather more friendly dragon who's been ill-treated by its owner, a dragoner, and is very glad to be purchased by Oddney as a means of transport to get to a specific island where they believe they can view the fire drake. So the fire drake is obviously a fiery red creature. And the other dragon is rather mottled and camouflaged, a bit like his name is Spitfire. And the way that came about was that Oddney, being, a man of the 50s, not long after the Second World War, everybody's favourite plane was a Spitfire. And Spitfire was sold on the understanding that he couldn't breathe fire, which is a bit disappointing for the dragon. But they found out that under pressure in certain circumstances, he did breathe fire and saved the day on many occasions. So Oddney named him Spitfire.
Yeah, I like Spitfire a lot. Spitfire and Magnus are two really good companions to have, I think, for Oddney. And also, of course, you've got a lovely endorsement at the front from John Cleese as well, which must have been like a lovely thing to have for the book.
Yeah.
Rodney's John Cleese started collecting Rodney's work in the 1980s.
85, I think.
85, yeah. So he's a bit of a fan of Rodney's fantasy fairy tale work, and yet he's become a good friend, and he loved the book.
He's a good friend. He's a remarkable chap for 84, flitting about the world doing all these shows. But I first met him in the Chris Beatles Gallery in London, in the West End, when I was part of a end-of-year illustrators show. And I didn't actually meet him on the first show. It was a year later. But one of my fans said to me he was in the gallery the other day, and the proprietor, Chris Beatles, had let on that John Cleese had bought some of my work. And Beatles was very tight-lipped about his customers, and I didn't know this. And I thought, wow, this man is sort of part of my life. The Monty Python stuff and the 40 Towers and all the rest of it. And he's bought some of my work. So you can see I've talked about with a swelled head for some time. But he turns out to be very down-to-earth when you get to know him. He's quite a compassionate sort of person, enormous amount of energy. And he just started collecting my work, and we currently work on his merchandise. I illustrate, and Sarah sort of does all the computer work.
I do the graphic art side. And
she's a very good graphic artist, despite her pedigree with the writing.
Well, because you put it all together, you've got some amazing artwork and just amazing art in general.
We're a good team, and I think that's important. I think that's what we wanted to come across in the book, that you've got to work together and that everyone has their own individual skills. And if you can put all that skills together, then something amazing can happen. And also, as people, when they read, they'll see with Oddney and Spitfire, if you're kind to people, you can get the best out of them rather than ill-treating them like the horrible Dragoner does.
Absolutely. That's the way forward. Well, Oddney's Otherland is out right now, and hopefully we can see more from your gang very soon. But in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for telling us all about it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. So 3 totally different books for you there. We had the beautiful Boy and the Octopus, we had the very, very exciting Arkspire 2, and we had the fantastical Oddney's Otherland. If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and tell all of your friends about it. And of course, I'll see you next time for some more books. Bye!